What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Miniature Mayhem. My name's Chris. In today's tutorial I'm going to be painting the Kosargi Nightguard from the Cursed City box set. These two undead ogres are a fantastic addition to the undead range, and I really hope that they add the other races into that as well. Maybe we'll see one day some undead dwarves or some undead elves, which would be really awesome too. In today's tutorial we're going to be covering lots of simple techniques. If you do find this tutorial useful, I'd massively appreciate a thumbs up down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. Let's get straight into the video. For the ogres, we're going to start with a simple base coat of black primer. Make sure you've got a nice even coat so we can leave some of the deeper recesses black. I've already painted the base to tie it in with the rest of my Cursed City box set. If you're interested in how to do that, I'll leave a link to a video above. For the cloak, I've applied an all-over base coat of Baraknar Burgundy. This is one of the new base coat paints from Citadel, and I have to say I'm really enjoying using it. I seem to have used it in quite a lot of my projects recently. I found that when applied like this as a base coat, it provides really nice coverage, but it's also been really good to use as a glaze, and it really takes well to using Lamy medium with it. After you've applied a couple of thin coats of this, you have a really nice deep burgundy cloak. Don't worry about getting it on the other areas, as we're going to cover those later. For the undead skin of the ogres, I decided to test another new paint. In this case it was Orc Flesh, and I have to say, actually I was really not that happy with this paint. You can see it being applied there, that's straight out of the pot. It's not actually covering very well at all, even without being watered down. It took around 3 or 4 coats to cover a hand, but when it was dry it did come out as a nice vivid green. It did look okay, but there's definitely easier paints to use to get good coverage. For the wooden handles on the ogre's weapons and the leather belts around their waist, I used a base coat of Mournfang Brown. If you've watched any of my other tutorials, you know this is a bit of a staple colour of mine. It's really great for wood, it's really good for leathers, and also as a base coat for bone colours. It takes really well to inks, including sepia and Agrax Earthshade, and always comes out really nice and varied in colour when you've finished with it. For the other materials, I decided to use Incubi Darkness, give them a little bit of an undead pirate vibe. I applied this to the cuffs, the boots, and also to the tassels that hold the fabrics together. For the bones, teeth and fingernails, I used a base coat of Hobgrot hide. I also used this to create a little bit of variation in the skin, especially on the broader, flatter areas. Just take your time, work your way around the model and pick out any of the relevant areas. Some of them are quite hidden, especially on the back and hidden in some of the folds of the cloaks. For all of the metallic areas, I applied a base coat of Leadbelcher Silver. Don't worry, I know it looks super bright at the moment, but we're going to come back and darken it down later. For the fur, I applied a base coat of Vallejo Dark Flesh Tone. For Radakar's pelt, I'm intending to have a white wolf, so I thought I'd add some variation to the unit by having these guys with brown pelts. I decided to base coat them with the flesh tone rather than Mournfang Brown, just to create some nice variation in the unit. Don't forget this little rat when you're painting the other areas Mournfang Brown, and when you're finished, add some Bugman's Glow to his tail. For the ogre beards, I applied a base coat of Stormvermin Fur. Sorry about the focus on this one. With everything base coated now, I've given the whole model an all over wash of Agrax Earthshade mixed with a little bit of Lamy medium just to make it a little bit more transparent. I would not normally be so slapdash with inks, but seeing as this is an undead zombie, I think we can get away with it. Using a 2-in-1 mix of Lamy medium to Mournfang Brown, I've created a glaze that I'm going to apply all over the recesses of the blade and along the blade's edge, and also on the bottom third of the cloak. This is a great way to start building up grime on surfaces and to add like a sense of age. When you do apply it, just make sure you drag it down towards the edge where you intend for the paint to settle most. And you can always apply multiple thin layers if you want to build it up to be a little bit heavier than I have here. Don't be worried if it starts to look garish as you're applying it. As it starts to dry, it will begin to tone down a little bit. As you can see here, when it dries, it's quite a subtle effect. Using Pallid Witch Flesh as a highlight colour, I've added a small amount of it to Baraknar Burgundy and applied that volumetrically and as edge highlights all around the cloak. Again, using Pallid Witch Flesh as my highlight colour, I've just applied a small amount of it into Incubi Darkness and applied that as an edge highlight all around the dark turquoise areas. To highlight the skin tone, a small amount of pallid witch flesh was applied again to auric flesh. Using the same colour to highlight all of your layers can be a really nice way to unify a colour scheme. I've done the same here for the leather by adding a small amount of witch flesh into Mournfang Brown. To highlight the fur, I've just applied a light edge highlight of Mournfang Brown. The moulding around the cap on these models was not particularly good, so you have to just use your best guess where you think some of the highlights should be applied. To highlight the beard, I used a layer of Dawnstone Grey. Using Wazdaka Red and a small amount of Limian Medium, I applied a glaze into the gums, just to add some colour into the face. To add some more variation to the metallic areas, I used Troll Slayer Orange to symbolise some rust. I just brushed this into some of the more damaged areas and into the grooves, and dragged it down, and also washed it into some of the areas where the metallics meet. Don't forget to add some nice rusted areas to the shoulder plates as well. As a final highlight on the model, I applied a fine edge highlight of Ironbreaker Silver to all of the metallic areas. With that final highlight now dry, the Kosargi Nightguard are complete. I'm really happy with how these guys turned out. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you've watched this far, I really appreciate it. If you could spare a second of time to click the like button down below, or share us with a friend who you think might be interested, I'd be massively grateful, as it helps us get discovered by new people. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.